So, my name's Jen Metzger. I'm your new state senator, and I want to say that I'm really psyched to be here for Women's History Month because women have traditionally been really underrepresented in political life, and we made a huge advance in this election. The state Senate has 63 members, and less than a quarter of them were women until this most recent election, and now a third of us are women. And across the country, there were enormous increases in women running for office and in public office. And I'm not going to just focus on the women issues and side of things, even though that's this month, but it is extremely encouraging that women are stepping up to do this, and I can tell you how it's already had an impact on the state legislature and on the culture in Albany. For one, there's been legislation that's been bottled up for years to protect women's health and reproductive rights, and we passed legislation that protected those rights, which was huge, and are also taking steps to address the culture of sexual harassment, sexual violence in the workplace that existed throughout Albany. And we've had a number of legislators, right? These are supposed to be the people that are modeling behavior for you and for the rest of our communities that have been arrested for that kind of behavior. So these are ways in which we're making positive changes. But there's a lot of other things that we're doing. But I just want to talk to you about how many of you would even think about ever running for office. All right, that's great. I would have never thought about it. You're already off to like a really good start. That's pretty great. It may be more of you, maybe more of you will after today, because you can get a lot done for your communities, especially in Missouri, which I happen to be a member of right now. But I never thought of running. I got my doctorate in political science, and I like to write about politics and teach about politics, and also I was really a big activist in my community at the community level, trying to get political change on the environment in particular. Like that's one of my biggest concerns is how we're addressing the climate crisis, but other issues too. And it never really occurred to me to run for office, but I kept getting more and more involved at the community level. And then one day, someone came up to me. I live in Rosendale. You guys know Rosendale? Ever heard of that? Not too far away. And somebody asked me to run for office, and I was like terrified of the idea of getting involved in that, because you read the paper about races, it's often kind of ugly. People get very negative, and you're kind of out in the public. And but I decided, I so wanted to change things so badly for my community that I figured that was a really good way to do it. And it actually turned out to be not nearly as scary as I thought it would be. And it was actually a really great process. I knocked on every single door in my town and talked. They tell you not to run for election, not to campaign that way. But I did do that because I thought it was really important to meet everyone. And it was great. You learn a lot about your community when you go to where they live, see how they live, talk to them about what their concerns are, and it made me a better candidate, really. And the first time I ran, I lost by like a handful of votes. It was actually, they had just changed the voting machines, and they weren't really sure what they were doing. They moved away from the old mechanical machines to these new scanners. So we were everyone that worked in my campaign, everyone was packed into this restaurant downtown watching the results. And they announced the results that I had won, and everyone was like, yay! And then I got a call the next morning that I actually lost because they had like not counted a few votes. So that was kind of crazy. But anyway, I persisted and I ran again for town council and won by more votes than anyone had ever won by in my town. And really enjoyed working at the local level in town government, because that's like you're living with the people that you're serving, so you can really see the impact of your work. And people have been talking to me about running for a higher office, but I have kids. And I have 3 sons. They're now close to your age. I have 2 twin freshmen at Rondout Valley. And my oldest is now a freshman at SUNY Binghamton. But back then, I really was not, it was too hard for me to run because I didn't want to leave them for a state office, for the office that I'm holding now, because it's incredibly demanding. And I think that a lot of women are in this position of weighing this, and it's the reason why I think there are not a lot of parents of young children that are in state office. It's incredibly demanding and it's incredibly hard from that perspective. And even this year, I would have waited 2 more years if, when my kids were, totally sick of me, which they're not yet, just a couple of years older. But I was so upset by what was happening at the federal level in this country. I couldn't bear it anymore. It was like keeping me up at night. And I couldn't really change a whole lot, on the town council in Rosendale. A lot of these issues were like higher level issues, at the state level and the federal level. And so I thought, I can't change things at the federal level right now, but I could run for state office and change things for New Yorkers at the very least. And so I made that decision to run for state office, and it is nothing like running for a little local town race. Like, Rosendale is 6,000 people. It's a little town. My state senate district is 2,400 square miles. It's hundreds of thousands of people. It's, goes from like the Orange County, the New Jersey border, in Pine Island, in Warwick, all the way up to Delaware County, the Catskill region. It's just giant, and it covers part of Ulster, all of Sullivan County. It's really big, and so it was just a totally different level of campaigning, and it was great. I still followed kind of the same strategy of just, it was really important to knock on people's doors and actually talk to them directly. And I had a really unusual campaign. Most campaigns for state office, people raise a lot of money from corporations in particular, but all kinds of people. And I made a pledge that I wouldn't take any corporate money of any kind, because I don't want to be beholden to anybody when I get into office, except for the people that I represent. And I had a really huge grassroots campaign. We had like a crazy number of people. We had over 1,000 people sign up to volunteer time to work on that campaign. And it was a total upset that I won, because the seat, it was just not expected that I would win this seat, because I'm a Democrat, and this seat has been held, well, portions of my district have never been represented by a Democrat, ever. And the incumbent that had been in there, that retired, had been in there for decades. And so it was a real upset, and the state senate as a whole changed hands and shifted to a Democratic majority, which is a big change. So it's exciting to be part of that change. We have another interesting thing about it, aside from that it's a different party that is in the majority, is that it's so many new people in the state Senate. Like in the state legislature, you get people that have been in there for decades. Like it's a lifelong career. And I always have been concerned that they start to get disconnected from the people they serve and kind of pay more attention to their immediate environment and all the lobbyists and the like. And so now we have all of these new members with a real fresh perspective. So we're doing all kinds of new and different things in the state legislature. So it's been a really exciting place to be. We passed legislation in the first, we passed more legislation in the first month of office than it had been done in a very long time. And it was on a wide range of issues, women's rights, human rights. We passed really important campaign finance reforms and election reforms. Actually relevant to you is that we reduced the age from 17 to, you can register to vote at 16. You can't vote until you're 18, but you can register now so that you're ready to go. But we made it really much easier for people to participate in their democracy, which is so important, and are trying to get the money out of the politics so that the government can function better and better represent people. So we've done a lot. I chaired the Agriculture Committee because the Senate Agriculture Committee because our Senate district is actually the most rural district in the Democratic majority. We've got farms in all of the counties in that district, and it's a huge driver of the economy and really important to the rural heritage of our communities. So I do a lot of work in that area. And I don't know what, I really I can go on and on, but I'd much rather answer your questions if you have any. I saw a few cards, but
I'll get it going.
Sure.
So these are cards that were written out, and then I hope that some of you guys will actually, if you get to the point that you want to, throw out some questions, please do. So I might as well jump right into it. So the question is, are you considering making marijuana legal in New York State?
So crazy as it sounds, right now we're working on the state budget, and sometimes often policy issues get stuck in the state, get put into the state budget, and legalizing marijuana has been one of them. Although the governor announced last week that he was going to take it out of the budget and not make it part of the budget process, in which case that reduces the chances that it would be done this year. But everything that happens now is a negotiation. So between now and April 1st, when the budget is due, so it's not clear whether it's going to be in or out. But the state legislature has legislation to legalize adult use marijuana is what we call it, not recreational marijuana, but adult use marijuana. And the logic behind it is that it's entirely it makes no sense. It's entirely inconsistent to have legal access to alcohol, which is so much more threatening to safety and to people's health and far more addictive. So it's kind of our laws are currently arbitrary, and it's also a criminal justice issue as well, because studies have shown that whites and blacks use marijuana to the same degree, but if you're black, you're 4 times more likely to be arrested for it. So that's not fair, right? So there's some criminal justice reasons. And it's just also, there's a lot of resources that we've spent at every level in our communities. There's a lot of resources that are spent, trying to prevent, or whatever, carrying out the law with regard to marijuana that could be spent on violent crimes and on truly other drug issues that are far more dangerous. So, but I don't know where that is going. I can't really tell you yet what's going to happen with that.
What specifically does your job consist of on a daily basis?
So on a daily basis, so the legislative session is from January to June. So for those, 5 months, I'm in Albany a lot. It varies from week to week, but right now it's, I'm packing a bag for 9 days because we have to have the budget done by April 1st, and it's like an all-day, all-night affair getting that done. So, but the times when I'm not in Albany, I'm in the district doing different things. Like this morning, I had breakfast with all the EMS, our first responders, our ambulance drivers, to talk about their issues and the problems that they confront. I'll come to schools. I go meet with constituents around the district. So I'm never home. I'm not home so much anymore. I'm often meeting with people either in the district, and I have offices. I have an office in Albany in what's called the Legislative Office Building, and which is connected to the Capitol where we meet in legislative session. And then I also have a district office the main office is in Middletown, and then we have another satellite office that we're opening in Sullivan County in Liberty. And the reason why you need this is because half of the job is legislation, but the other half of the job is just helping people. And people call our office all the time with all kinds of issues that they have tried everything and they can't move forward in addressing an issue. It could be an employment issue. It could be access to social services. It could be a problem in the school. It could be a dispute with a neighbor over polluting a shared stream. It's huge and wide ranging, and we address and we try to fix people's problems. So that's a big piece of the job, actually, that has nothing to do with legislation.
So going back to marijuana real quick, I don't know if you already said this or
Most
not.
popular issue.
I don't know if you already said this or not, but I have 2 questions. The first one, what is your opinion? Do you want it to be passed or do you not want it to be passed?
So I support it purely based on the empirical data. I come from a academic background, social science background, and I believe the policy should be based on sound social science and empirical data. And the data is overwhelmingly in favor of legalizing it. That said, there are still issues. That have to be addressed. It's harder to evaluate somebody's impairment if they're driving, if they've smoked marijuana, than if they've had a couple of drinks. You can measure that right on the spot, but marijuana can be in your bloodstream for up to 30 days, I think, and so that's a real issue, and that you can't marginalize that. And there are some technologies I understand that are that are going to help us address that, but you can't belittle that issue because it is really important.
And my second question is, me being a first responder myself, EMT, why would you want to legalize it when you're going to see more accidents related with marijuana because marijuana slows down your reaction time. So why would you want to put more people in risk rather than keeping it not legalized and not having people more in risk?
So the issue is that people are already using it.
Yeah, but
And
not as
it's-
much people though.
Well, you would be surprised.
Well, I
A
don't
lot of
see a lot of
people-
accidents,
A
a lot
lot.
of MVAs with
Right.
marijuana.
Right.
More people just being idiots. But with
Right.
marijuana, I'm probably gonna see a lot more accidents. But Colorado, there's probably a lot of accidents, but just related to marijuana itself.
I mean, the data on the accidents from other states' experience, like, we're not the first state to do this. There are many other states that have done this. So it's not clear that it increases the level of accidents. It is the case that the states around us are all legalizing it, so people will drive to other states and then drive back. So that's an issue.
As a limited knowledge,
What was the question? She asked if I see discrimination in general, with women specifically. I mean, it's definitely. I think I don't have anything to compare it to because I haven't been there. This is my first year, but there's definitely like good old boys clubs, and and there are ways of doing things that are not acceptable and that we're trying to disrupt and change. I haven't personally experienced that. I'm very outspoken and I won't take anything like that, so I will, and I'm tall and maybe people are scared. But anyway, I personally haven't, but I know lots of people that have experienced it and staff that have had problems.
I'm just going to say, are you pro-abortion?
how lobbyists and proposal like Big Pharma or like the oil
So what's your question?
have like
Then what
affected.
about-
Why are you pro-abortion?
Funded money for their things.
Why are you
So, what has been
pro-abortion?
done to keep the power within the people?
So, we passed 3 bills in the legislature.
Only him.
Are you okay?
Only can count only him.
That's the Twin Towers.
You okay? Only you.
Alright, Johnny.
Fucking you, kid.
We passed a few different bills. We passed one bill to close this loophole.
I'm sorry.
They were called limited liability corporations.
Is it the chair for you?
No, it
Like,
swivels.
transparency, and they could create,
Those were for-
corporations could create many different kinds of entities and contribute an unlimited, like millions of dollars in it. And so we closed
Why are you
that
pro-abortion?
we just passed a bill recently that made it, that prohibited companies that have contracts with the government or are intending on trying to get a contract with the government from making campaign contributions. I have my own bill. It was the first bill that I wrote when I got in there to ban corporate contributions entirely. And I'm trying to get, and I have another. So when to pass legislation, you need the same bill in both houses have to pass, in the state assembly and the state senate. So I have the same as bill in the assembly, and then the governor, after we pass it, the governor has to sign it, and then it becomes law. So I'm hoping to get that passed this year. And there's also a push for publicly financed elections so that anyone can run for office rather than just those who can afford it or know people that can give them lots of money. So we've made a lot of progress. We're going to keep making progress. And I actually also want to the sponsor of a bill just came to my attention yesterday to put, right now, there are all these fundraisers in Albany. All these politicians have these fundraisers that just lobbyists go to. So the bill would actually prohibit fundraisers in Albany during the legislative session.
You gonna do it?
Any other questions? You again, back to marijuana?
No, actually. So related to women's health, what's your view on abortion?
I'm pro-choice.
And why do you think you're pro-choice? Like,
Why do I think that?
yeah.
Well, I have always felt that way. You know, I understand and respect that people have views, you know, across the spectrum on this issue and on the other side. But I believe that a woman, it's her body, and she should have full autonomy over that decision making. It's a matter of her own health and her own decision. So,
Another question from the cards is, would it be possible or foreseeable to have college tuition rates lowered or eventually free at some point?
Fucking murder.
So, I am a big supporter of increasing state funding for SUNY schools. My own son goes to a SUNY school. It's an affordable education. Colleges, like, it's just unaffordable for so many people generally. And, you know, my family didn't have money, and I had a full ride to college. I had a full financial aid package, and that made it possible for me to go. And I had to take out I had to take out loans, but nothing like what kids today have to pay in loans. And, you know, New York State, in its constitution, we actually have a constitutional commitment to making sure people get an education in New York State. And I believe we have to make good on that. And it's not just so all of you can, you know, realize, you know, your full potential and do whatever you want to do. It's also good for our economy, and, you know, New York's long-term health, economic health and the like. So I have been in this budget process. The state has been shrinking its share of the funding to public schools and to public colleges and to the SUNY system, and as a result, tuition has been increasing to make up that difference, and that's a problem to me, because that makes it not accessible to everyone, and puts you guys in a position where you have to take on a lot of debt starting off. And, you know, I just remember the debt. When I got out of college, I got a great job. I was a government major in college, but I focused on international politics, and I got a job at the United Nations Association in New York, and I worked there for a number of years, and it was great, but I had to live in New York City, which back then, now it's impossible to afford to live in New York City, but back then it was really hard too. And I was like really living on the edge, just on the salary that I had, servicing my debt, paying my rent, and all of that. So it really hurts people, young people starting off in life, if they have to, you know, take on that debt. So I'm pushing for more rather than less state funding of both K-12, our public schools, and also our colleges. But that's the way to do it. In terms of free, that's going to be a longer term goal. Right now, we just have to get the tuition reduced. Okay. All right, I'll come back to you if no one else has any other questions. Did you have a question? Oh, no.
No one else raised their hand.
Have Joey answer. Have Joey answer it.
Bro, what's your question? I'll answer.
Okay, so we passed a package of common sense gun laws early in the session. One of them, which I was, I voted against one law, and I voted in favor of all the rest of them. And I'll explain why in a minute, but So, there's a lot we can do. This is a hugely divisive issue, gun regulation, gun laws in our country and also in our state, and particularly in our Senate district and in the more rural areas of our Senate district, because a lot of people own guns. And they own them for hunting, and they own them for their farms, they own them for different reasons, but a lot of people own guns. But there are a lot of things we can do to address gun violence and just improve safety. And one of the most important laws that we passed was, it's called a red flag law, but it enables families and police and school administrators to work together with the court. If there is somebody who poses a danger to themselves or others, they could get a temporary court order to remove firearms from their possession. And that, to me, is very common sense. And that could have prevented the tragedy that we've seen in Parkland and elsewhere. And there were some other laws like prohibiting 3D printing of guns, which is pretty scary, and lengthening the period for background checks, because not all our period in New York had been 3 days, which the vast majority of background checks can be done in 3 days and it's no problem, but there's a percentage of those that it takes longer to do, and basically people were given their guns after the 3 days. So we've lengthened that period. Still, most people will pass and get it within that shorter period, but it'll at least make sure that everyone is clear. And there were a few other things. The one that I voted against was more recent, and I didn't oppose the intent of the legislation. It was about gun storage in the house, in homes where there are children 16 and under. My concern was that the penalty was really severe. A parent could be put in jail for a year for not properly storing their gun, and there was no mechanism for informing people who owned guns but were not going. If you went and bought a new one, you would be informed of the law, but if you didn't, you wouldn't know. And to me, like, that was way too severe. So I actually voted against it, went against my party on that one. But it's definitely, it's an epidemic of gun violence in this country. And there are the mass shootings that capture everyone's attention, but there's the daily gun violence that isn't in the paper all the time. And the fact that many people are killing themselves with guns, and that is something that really, is frightening. It's a frightening trend, and it needs to be addressed. No, I voted against that, and we have a bill that prohibits that. I don't think your teachers should be armed.
Thank you.
Do you guys agree or not?
Yes, I do.
You failed the test to get shot.
Look at Chef Bird, be the first one to go.
Shot for like a dumb reason.
Oh yeah. Wait, guys, I can't hear.
I just wanted to ask about the rise of nationalism in the world today, like people saying to put America first or drop back from, I guess, the rest of the world. Do you think that this would be a smart way to go into the future? No, and the lessons of history tell you that that is not the case, right? I mean, nationalism was behind world wars. Nationalism is often used in scapegoating of people, like immigrants, which is happening right now in this country. It's used, and around the world, it's like age old. I mean, like Stalin did it, like Russian Tsars did it, it's a way of diverting people's attention from the real problems and issues that they face and which we should be addressing. I actually believe that we're not that far apart as a society. We're not nearly as divided and polarized. People play on certain issues they're like emotional issues that trigger a different part of your brain, like the fight or flight part of your brain, rather than the rational, intellectual part of your brain, and that you can't really have discussions about. We have issues that we all care about in this country. We all care about making sure that we have a good education system. We all care about that everyone has the opportunity to get a good job, and can afford to live in their communities without being pushed out because their taxes are too high, they can't afford their health care, and these are real issues right now. Like, so many people are living really at the margin, even if they have decent jobs, because their daily costs of living are so high. We all care about the environment, right? Like, it's like we need the environment. We need a healthy planet. The climate, I think there are different ways to talk about climate and the challenge we face with addressing climate change that everyone can get on board with, because I actually don't think there are many people that deny that the climate is changing, but it also opens up huge opportunities for us to have true energy security, right? If we're generating our own clean energy here, our foreign policy has been dictated by oil forever. We've been getting into wars, costly wars. Wouldn't it be nice not to have to depend on those oil imports and generate our own clean energy here? So it's about our energy security. It's about creating really good paying jobs. Clean energy jobs are good paying jobs, and they're labor intensive jobs, meaning that to produce it requires a lot of people, rather than fossil fuels, which are called capital intensive jobs, when it's not about individuals, it's about the investment in the machinery and the equipment. So there's a huge potential for us as our economy and our long-term security to address these. And so we have to look at like all of the things that we have in common. And I think every one of us, right, our democratic values, rights to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, this idea of political equality, everyone agrees with those things. I mean, as Americans, we all believe that. We just have to remind ourselves of them in when we're talking about issues that challenge those values. So I think that there's far more that unites us than divides us, and so it's all about bringing the conversation back to things that we all care about. All right. I'll let you go again.
So you just said everyone deserves life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Go into life.
Uh-huh.
With New York State passing the abortion law saying that women can get abortions up to 9 months pregnancy, why would they allow that when that's straight up murder?
So first of all,
Doesn't everyone deserve a
no
life?
one is going to get an abortion at 9 months pregnant. And I think that there's so much misinformation out there about the Reproductive Health Act. All it did is codify Roe v. Wade, which has been what has guided New York legally for many decades. That's the court case that has guided us legally on that for decades. It's only when a woman's health is at risk, and if the fetus is unviable, not alive.
But they would
that
know
is allowed.
before that the woman's health at risk, not at 9 months. They would say at maybe like 6, 7, maybe 5 months, hey, your baby is, causing health risks. You should get an abortion, not 9 months before, a woman's about to give birth.
But that's not going to happen then. We're talking about if a woman is going to die, is it better for the woman to die than to have an abortion?
Makes the baby live, maybe.
Well,
There's always C-section as well.
If
you don't have a vagina, you don't have an opinion on the topic.
Everyone should have an opinion.
But it's not, you know, as we said,
Something called a C-section. I don't know if you know
this
about
is one of those issues you can't convince people one way or the other. And people, and you have to respect, and I do respect people's beliefs. But it's their right to follow those beliefs for themselves. And it's not right to impose your religious beliefs on other people. So that is my feeling, and I think, you know, but again, I can't, you know,
definitely not.
I don't think any woman ever wants to do that. You know, this is something really, it's about protecting a woman's health.
Oh, sorry. Over here. One more. So I feel like, as I look at just politics today, I feel like we're getting more divided or more radical in a way. And why do you think that this is happening?
Well, for the reasons I said earlier, I think that some politicians they look to gain from that personally by just playing off. You know, just it's a cheap way to get support and to rile people up and to tap into their fears. And when you tap into people's fears, you know, it's again diverting people from the real issues. I think that's, you know, we're in a very unusual place right now because that's happening at the highest level of government in our country right now. But you know, this has been happening throughout history, and I feel that again, if you can, you know, I feel that people that are involved in public office have an obligation to bring the discussion back to the issues that really matter to people, and try to build consensus. And you have to listen to people. You know, you have to listen, and you're not always going to agree. He and I are not always going to ever probably agree on that issue, but, you know, at least show that, you know, that it's okay to have a difference of opinion on issues and work together on those issues that you can work together on. But that's how we'll never get anywhere, and people are losing faith in their political institutions because of this divisiveness. You know, and they're not able to get things done. So when I was in local government, we had a great board, and we focused on just getting things done. We didn't get into these you know, high-powered ideological, polarizing conversations. We did the work, and that's what I'm doing. And I work with and talk with my Republican colleagues all the time in the state Senate. You know, I think we all have to work together, and that's ultimately, you know, the best hope for us, I think. Anyone?
Do you agree with certain counties raising the tobacco age to 21?
I do agree with that. I don't know how popular that is, but I totally agree with it. And you know, so I smoked when I was young, and I started smoking in high school. And I wished I had never smoked. You know, it's like really bad for your health. It's really bad. And so anything, you know, that can be done to make sure that you're mature enough to make that bad decision to start smoking, I think we have to do. I'm definitely in favor of raising the age. It will kill you. It will.
Because you said nationalism is so bad, what is your opinion on socialism?
Well, there's nationalism. So what does nationalism mean to you?
Pride and devotion to your country.
No. So
that's the exact definition.
No, well, there's nationalism, meaning there is caring about your nation and believing in your country and believing in the values that it represents. I do the pledge every day. Mm-hmm. We're all united by that. And then there is basically, you know, just putting down other countries and not
That's
working
that's
together.
imperialism, actually. That's being imperialistic.
Imperialism?
That's imperialism. That's exactly what imperialism is. It is, though. It is.
But basically, just like I was talking about with people should be working together and countries should be working together.
She knows how she didn't answer socialism. She didn't answer anything about socialism. She didn't say anything.
New York State education system. Well, I'm a big believer in public schools. I think they're really important. And I think we should be investing more in them. You know, we should be just making sure we have inequality in access to educational resources across our school districts, in part because we over-rely on local property taxes to fund our schools. So if you live in a community that's very rural and you don't have a lot of people you can raise that tax revenue from, then that school has those kids don't get the resources that they need compared to a school district where that's maybe much wealthier and they have a bigger tax base. And it's not those kids. It has nothing to do with those kids, and it's not their fault. And we should make sure that there's equal access to a good education. How do you feel about it?
I think that we're focusing too much on success stories, not enough on work.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
You won't at all.
That was
the exact definition of
And we actually have them now. That's impure. So
She's repeating herself constantly.
That links
No light.
teachers' evaluations
She's
to
repeating herself.
standardized tests in New York. And we passed legislation to end that link. Because it's ridiculous to evaluate teachers that way. But you still have to standardize tests. And I personally think that teachers should be able to have the autonomy to focus on the classroom and their education. And that if you're just teaching to the test, you're losing a lot of really valuable education time. So I'm not a supporter of a lot of standardized testing.
Do you believe that New York State taxes are too high?
Yeah, I do. I think that New York's, when we talk about New York State taxes, we're really talking about property taxes, because that's what affects most people outside of New York City. And we rely on property taxes much more to fund education than some other states. And property taxes
30 days
are
for
not,
me is 90 days
they're
for me, but
regressive,
okay.
meaning that they're completely unrelated to income, in New York.
You did,
So it's a
too.
problem. So some people are spending a huge percentage of their disposable income, just not some, many people are. And when I was campaigning, I met people who were losing their homes or in danger of losing their homes to property taxes. So we have to change the way we fund education in New York. It can't be so reliant on property taxes. We did pass a property tax cap in the Senate, but that doesn't address the whole issue by any stretch.
What has been the progression in making local jobs involving renewable energy?
What was the first part of the question?
Creating local jobs. That's something that was part of your campaign for creating local jobs
Right.
instead of
Right.
for outside sources.
So if New York commits to shifting, to accelerating the shift to a clean energy economy, that's going to generate a market for these jobs. So for instance, one of the biggest employers in the clean energy industry, or types of jobs, is retrofitting buildings, making buildings more efficient. So our building stock contributes, well, all buildings, about, I think it's close to 40% of our greenhouse gas emissions. A lot of them were built before there were any standards, energy efficiency standards. So those are great jobs. Those are great jobs, retrofitting homes, making them more efficient. And then also just doing, renewable, it could be renewable installations on people's homes, these smaller scale systems, community renewable energy, which is now allowed in New York and is a great thing, but it's just getting off the ground. And then really large scale projects like wind projects, offshore and onshore. So there are lots of opportunities for big jobs. All right, I don't know how much time. Okay.
You never addressed the whole socialism part of my question.
So, socialism, we're not a socialist country. I don't really think about socialism.
I'm just saying because a lot of things that are being passed is quite social.
What do you think of socialism?
You said before you want to lower the price of schooling, and if you can, it'd be awesome to have it free. That's a socialistic
let me tell you
idea.
about that. So, have you heard of Adam Smith?
Yes.
Okay. So Adam Smith, if you read Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations, you will see that Adam Smith, the father of capitalism, the guy who invented the expression, the invisible hand, talks about public goods like education and highways, and the fact that they're outside of the market, meaning that no one has these are what are called public goods, that no private interest in providing them really exists or are going to be enough to provide those services, and that those are legitimate areas for government legitimate services for government to provide. And education, you can look at education as, this is an investment in your economy. That's what it is. It's it's investment in your people, and it's also an investment in your democracy, because the founding fathers of this country understood that you can't have a democracy that really works unless your citizens are educated and capable of critical thinking. And so if you want to have a healthy democracy and you want to have a healthy economy, you have to have an educated population. And now, I'm not saying necessarily four-year college that is not, there's all kinds of education. And a four-year college, and a liberal arts education is not the answer for everyone, and they're all different. We need many people, we need so many more people in the trades than we have. And so there's different kinds of education, but providing those educational opportunities, whatever types of education we're talking about, are really important for your long-term well-being. And so it's a good investment, not just in you and in our children, but in our economy.
Okay. Are there ways that they can get involved in politics more that you haven't done?
Yeah. Well, yeah, so we do have to, I saw that. So, Samrat, did you have a question?
I just wanted to thank you for coming here. And the fact that I don't think most students in the school realize that what a champion you are for the environment and on the front of climate change. Like someone who's devoted so much of their life to making sure that we in the Hudson Valley have this clean air that we breathe. And now you're working on legislation in the New York State Senate. So I really want to thank you for that. I don't think these kids are very
Don't clap.
I didn't even push my hands.
Like some of the more controversial issues today. but a lot of the things I do are not controversial and are pretty straightforward and are made, like a lot of the things I'm working on are trying to make life easier for
What about the
farmers
ice
to
age?
reduce the hurdles.
What about the
to,
glacier melting? That
getting their
happened
products
before
to
the,
market,
like,
things
before the
like
other,
that.
before
So there are a
last
lot
ice
of
age.
different facets of the government. I know you guys are interested in those big issues, and I'm
happens in
glad we
cycles.
could talk about that.
It's in a lot
And
of
if
bullshit.
it is really great, I will say, you know, I had a lot of high school kids involved in my campaign, Sophia included right back there, and it was really amazing. Adults will listen to you in a way they won't listen to other adults, because they understand, first of all, they care more about you than they care about other adults, and they also understand it like hits them in the face that it's your future when you're getting involved in talking about political issues. It has a much bigger impact. And so I would, really recommend or suggest to you, to get involved in whatever way you want. It might be in clubs in school. I mean, I know I visited some schools that have clubs around. They could be around community. It doesn't have to be political. It could be just giving back to your community in some way. And I think probably you are, right? Did you say that, are you a volunteer?
I'm an EMT.
You're an EMT. So, I mean, doing these kinds of things of giving back to your community are hugely important. So it doesn't have to be politics, but just, and it doesn't have to be a lot of time, but just putting a little bit of time in, and you'll see it's like so rewarding when you're making an impact on things around you. It really is. So from the small to the big, I'd suggest just trying it out. But thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
Don't cry. Don't
You have to go back to class. We have the list of who's here, so we're about to send an email out to let them know that we're releasing.